If you were to go undercover and try to book a new patient visit with your own practice, what kind of experience would you have? Would you say call in and get a busy signal? Or would you call in and immediately be put on hold? How long would you sit on hold? Or do you have the option to go online and start booking an appointment that way? If you do that, how many pieces of information do you have to put in before you get to an appointment time? How frustrated are you with the experience by the time you've actually gotten on the calendar? If the answer is very, then you want to stay tuned to this episode. We're going to dive into how practices are losing money before patients ever arrive at your practice. If we haven't met yet, I'm Alisa Conner, and I show up here every week to help specialty medical practices and professional services grow, not by outspending their competitors, because that's a little bit ridiculous, but instead by creating impactful, meaningful, and positive patient and customer experiences that their patients and customers can't wait to talk about. If your front desk team is like most practices that I talk with or work with or that I walk into, they're likely super overwhelmed because their desk is typically the dumping ground for all of the things that nobody else can handle or nobody has time or capacity to take on. And that means when a patient is not only trying to book a new appointment with your office, but existing patients are trying to get back on the schedule, they are running into friction. And unfortunately, because you're now competing with private equity organizations that have this down to a T, those patients are going elsewhere. I want to give you the plan and the tactics to get ahead of this so that you not only see growth in your practice, but that you stop feeding leads into a leaky bucket that is making that effort futile. Most practices, when I talk to them about growth, their immediate reaction is, we're going to run more ads, or we're going to hire a bigger marketing agency, or we're going to rebrand, or we're going to redo our website. And all of those things are meaningful if you have the process underneath to support them. But most practices that I either assess or work with don't have those underlying processes. And that's what's biting them in the behind. So if you are under the impression that patients aren't choosing your practice or aren't moving forward with your practice because of one specific thing, it's likely not just one thing. It's likely a series of things that are making them frustrated and forcing their hand so that they go down the street. If your front desk feels like it's in survival mode and they're constantly being handed additional things, you're not only hurting your conversion rate of referral patients and new patients, but you're also burning out your staff. And as you know, staffing replacement or adding new team members is one of the most costly things you can do in your business. Now, if you are thinking to yourself, like, these are minor problems, we don't have time or attention or budget to address these, I want to grab your attention for a minute and ask you to think about the people that are behind these private equity organizations that are your competitors. Do you think that they have medical backgrounds, or do you think they have business backgrounds? Because the reality is they have business backgrounds, which means they have the processes, the systems, the technology, and everything ironed out because this is what they do. The unfortunate disadvantage for physicians that I'm trying to equal out a little bit is that you all went to school to learn to heal people. And now you're being asked to step into these roles of running a business that you were neither prepared for or don't have the tools or strategy to be effective with. That's no fault of your own. Your basket is probably just as full as the front desks, but that doesn't mean that the PE organizations are going to make it any easier for you. So I want to give you not only the process, but the tools so that you can succeed and not only become profitable, but become the go-to choice for patients because they know that when they come to your office, they're going to be treated like the humans they are and not just a number. That is your hidden advantage. So if you were to take a look at your front desk Are they the ones that have to handle all the follow-up calls, answer all the calls to make appointments? Do you have online scheduling? Do they have to look at all the forms that are submitted, throughout the day to see if people need appointments, or is anyone even doing that? Are they handling cancellations? Do they have to do website updates? Do they have to answer patient questions because no one else is available? Are they even forced to talk about financial matters when they don't have the ability or knowledge behind those decisions? If the answer is yes, they're handling all of those things, I can guarantee you that team member or team members are not only stressed out and overwhelmed, but probably beyond the capabilities that they were hired for in their current position. And that is not only hurting them and their mental well-being, but it's hurting your practice. Most practices, when they try to fix this problem, they're like, just move faster, just answer more calls, let's just get this piece of tech. It's going to help everything. But in the meantime, that piece of tech takes 5 different people to run it, or nobody's been properly trained on it, or it only does half of what it said it was going to do, or it's broken. And so that doesn't solve the problem. And even if all of those things were working, the underlying process of who manages the patient or the task hasn't been defined or optimized. It's going to get stuck somewhere along the way. And then, of course, either the person at the front desk or the technology is going to get blamed, when ultimately it's neither of those things. But instead, it's the process that was either never created or that hasn't been looked at for 5, 10, or longer years. And so nobody knows what, Sally's predecessor did in that situation because Sally never got the information. And so, of course, that doesn't work. You want to implement all these solutions and these tools, and you just want people to do more with less, but it doesn't solve the problem because patients are still leaving. That's because your bucket is full of holes, and those holes are where people are leaking out and going to your competitors. If no one owns the complete patient journey from start to end, and they aren't responsible for how that patient feels along that journey, there's no process designed or created around your patient journey, I can guarantee you. Because if there were, you wouldn't be losing patients along the way. And referrals is just a small segment of that patient journey. I talk a lot about referrals because most practices aren't even paying attention to the number of people that are actually coming to their practice that walk out the door before they ever get on the calendar. It's such a huge financial amount that I really became passionate about it when I started to do the math. And I heard other people talk about the math when we did it together, and they're like, I had no idea. And so I use referrals a lot, and I created actually a referral worksheet for you to calculate your referral loss. I'll link to it in the show notes today. But you can also just go grab it at alisaconner.com/worksheet if you want to calculate where your referral loss is. It's a great place to start. But the consequences of this go beyond referrals. And the big one is staff. If you have a burned out staff member or somebody that feels like they are being almost taken advantage of because they're asked to do everything, how long do you think they're going to stay in that position? If your front desk has become a revolving door, then you definitely want to pay attention to not only the rest of this episode, but today's action plan, because it's going to give you some really good insights on why your front desk team is getting burned out and why they keep leaving. And what that means for your patient experience is that if you have an overwhelmed team member, patients fall through the cracks. And that means they may never reschedule. So, for example, if you have a patient that met with Dr. Jones and then he sends them to the front desk to schedule, Sally's on the phone. She's got 3 phone lines lit up and she doesn't know which should be prioritized. The patient is standing there waiting to schedule. He's looking at his watch. He's got to get back to work. He waits 2 or 3 minutes and then he just says, I'll call and reschedule. Meantime, he never does. You just lost another patient that walked out the door. And that is lifetime patient value that went with him. And that is after you've done all the hard work of getting him in to meet with the doctor. He likes your office. He likes the doctor. And now he just walked out the door without rescheduling. Yikes. That's a lot of effort and work and time from your team to just have someone leave. Not to mention the 3 people that have been sitting on hold for 10 minutes. Those are the patient ones. Most people won't wait on hold for more than 90 seconds. So if you have people sitting on hold while Sally's trying to schedule somebody on the phone, which takes longer than 90 seconds, those people are going to hang up and they're going to go down the street. All of these things are leaks in your bucket. And if you don't have a process or system in place to handle them, you're going to continue to leak all of the people that are coming to your practice that you already earned as patients. So let's make it practical. If you tune into the show, you know every week we do what's called practice math. And it's lovingly been named practice math because most practices can relate. Chances are pretty high that you've heard me talk about orthopedic surgery and that specialty specifically. But if you haven't, let's just do a little bit of math. If you're an orthopedic surgeon, you likely get somewhere around 900 referrals a year. And there have been many statistics that I have researched and put into episodes on the show. And some of them as high as 65% of referrals do not convert. I like to keep it a little bit more conservative, so we're going to stick with 20% because every practice is different and your practice might be much better at converting those referral patients. But let's just use 20%. That's a good calculation number for average. So if you have 900 patients, 20% of them never become patients. That's 180 patients per year. If each of those patients is worth an average of $6,500 because they go through surgery, whatever that might be, then essentially you're taking that $6,500 times 180 patients. That's close to $1.17 million, almost $1.2 million per physician. Most practices that I assess or that I work with have far more than one physician. In fact, a practice I just looked at had 45 physicians. And if you multiply that by 45 physicians, because most people have more than one doctor, it's just over $52 million a year that never is being recovered. Nobody even goes to look for it. If I was losing almost $53 million a year, you better darn well believe I would be looking to see where that money is leaking out. But since we always talk about orthopedics and I do work with other specialties, I wanted to give you another example. So let's use functional medicine. It's a little bit different because functional medicine is fully reliant on referrals. Most of those people are self-referrals. So you would think, oh, they would have a much better conversion rate because people are seeking them out. But when I did the research, the number of patients that actually never make it to the schedule is higher than orthopedics. It's 68% on average. Now, their patient numbers are a little bit different. So when I went to do that, I looked at the average functional medicine clinic, and they typically get it was somewhere between 20 and 50 patient leads a month. So I split the difference and chose 35. So with 35 leads, that's pretty conservative. I think most practices probably have more than that because functional medicine is consistently growing. But we're going to use 35. If we were to take the average of 30%, which was, I tried to cut 68% in half, and I just came up with 30%. So it's a little less than half. But if only 30% of those leads didn't become patients, that is about 10 patients a month. And the average yearly revenue for patients is between $3,000 and $8,000. So I split the difference there and used $5,000 for this calculation. So you've got 10 patients, $5,000 yearly value for those patients. That's $50,000 a month. Could be a lot, depends on your practice. But when you multiply that by 12, that's $600,000 a year that you're losing. But these are people that want to work with you. And for one reason or another, they're running into friction and they're never scheduling with you. If that made you perk up and pay attention, then you definitely want to pay attention to this week's action plan. Because you're likely losing patients, regardless of specialty, in the same places. And you can't know where you're losing them unless you start with an audit. And so luckily, that's step number one. We're going to audit your version of Susie's current role. And I don't know who Susie is in your practice. That's just who Susie is in the example. And maybe you have more than one person that is Susie, but I want you to look at their role. I want you to have a conversation with them that is proactive and supportive so that they feel that you're not coming after them with just one more thing to do or one more reason to criticize what they're doing. Look at their role that they were hired for and then have them help you create a list of the things they're actually doing every day. And it might take them a couple days to come up with that list. As you're doing this audit, they should write down the things that they do every day. Some will come to them very quickly, and some they'll just go, oh, I just automatically do that. I completely forgot about it. It should be on the list. Give it a week, audit the position. Step number 2, I want you to redefine that front desk position and not look at it as somebody who answers the phone. Instead, that is the first stop for most patients on your patient journey. What tasks actually belong at that front desk? What tasks are going to make your patient experience so good that people are skipping and jumping when they come in and skipping and jumping when they go out? That is the kind of patient experience that I want you to strive and move forward with. Because when you have that, it's so much easier for you to compete with the bigger organizations that there really is no competition. They will never be able to catch you if you work from this perspective. Now, you may be wondering, where did this perspective come from? And I talk about it a lot. And how I got really focused on patient and customer experience is a little bit different than most places. And that is because my background was, before I went into marketing, was hospitality. The hospitality industry either nails this or they are totally screwed. And I was lucky enough to be introduced to a concept called unreasonable hospitality. And what that means is that there are certain restaurants in the world who provide experiences to their clientele, the people that come and eat at their restaurant, that are so memorable that they never have to advertise. They never have to worry about selling out the night because they have created experience that people cannot wait to tell other people about. And I want that for you. I want that for your practice because that's going to make you so much different than everybody else out there that you will never have to advertise again. Your word of mouth advertising will speak for itself. With that in mind, when you're redefining in step number 2, that position, I want you to think about the tasks that can be automated, the things that need to be optimized, and the things that never belonged to Susie to begin with. And then start to develop a plan on what you're going to do with those tasks, because Susie's main job, whether it's people coming in from the website, from a phone call, or in the door, is to ensure that you are delivering unreasonable hospitality, period. Step number 3, this is where you put your plan into action. You start to remove one thing from Susie's to-do list so she can focus all of her effort into those patient experiences in 30 days. What is the one thing you can take off of her plate that's going to let her breathe a little bit, that she should not have probably had responsibility for to begin with, that you can get off of her plate and either give to someone else or hire someone else to handle? That's the 3-step action plan. So as I mentioned before, if you're curious about the actual revenue number for your practice in the number of referral patients that you're losing, now, mind you, this is just one area that your practice is likely leaking revenue. I've identified 9. Most practices can identify 2. But if referrals is one of those that you're concerned about and you want to put some actual stats for your practice on paper, go and grab the referral loss worksheet at alisaconner.com/worksheet. And I will put the link both in the show notes as well as the description. If you're watching this on YouTube or seeing it on social media, you can find it there. If you have no idea where to start with this process, I have a 20-minute triage call that I will also put the calendar link for in the description. On that call, you're going to come in, we're going to look at your 3 biggest leaks, and you're going to get an action plan to start to plug those leaks. In the meantime, thanks so much for sticking with me this week. I hope that this has shined some light onto what's going on in your practice and what's going on in the industry. If you found value in this episode, I would love for you to share it with someone else so that they can also reap the benefit of the episode. In the meantime, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Take care, be well, stay safe.